Welcome to the High School Coaching Podcast. My name is Josh Morse. I'm here with Erik Dellasanta, high school coach for Lunenburg. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you're entering your third year as a high school coach, and you're coming off a playoff appearance. You're rebuilding the program.
The idea to build something and kind of mold a program to what you want it to be, right? In part, I just think it's more so like you have to build a culture that you believe in, that kids can buy into, and it's something that's attainable. And learn what good basketball is about year one. And then last year, we sort of felt like we were trending in the right direction. And so we talked about making state. We talked about getting into the Clark tournament, which in Central Mass is a big deal. Let's set those goals. Don't be afraid to attack and go after things that maybe are big dreams. And then if we believe that that's what's going to happen, how do we get between point A and point B where we talked about it? What are we all going to do about it? So that happened pretty good last year. We made it into the Clark tournament, had a monster win there. We had some super big wins early last year that were huge confidence boosters early in our season that kind of allowed our players to believe. And, whether you as a coach or I as a coach believe something, it doesn't matter a whole lot. The guys got to buy in, and they did. If we want to talk about later, we had a monster win at Maynard, which was huge, that leapfrogged our season, and got into state. We're a little disappointed, honestly, about our state performance. We felt we were a little bit better. But South Hadley outplayed us, no doubt, but we just felt we could have given them a better shot. So building that program is exciting. We're in the middle of it now. Where year three, we're hoping to even be better. And one thing I always tell the guys that have graduated of the last 2 years, like they're still part of that family, and they put a foundation down that we're just trying to be better about. Mm-hmm. But every win we get this year is about my guys last year and about the guys the year before.
When you enter a program as a new coach, what's the first thing that you're doing? What are the first few things that you're trying to evaluate and install to get your program to that next level?
It's relative to what I'm doing right now. I woke up this morning, there was 0% chance I wasn't wearing this shirt when I walked in here. I went to a meeting with my kids. Hey, I'm the new coach, and all these kids are sitting down in the bleachers. There wasn't one kid, not one, that had a Lunenburg basketball t-shirt on. I'm like, well, that's changing. We're going to be proud of who we are. We're going to show it off every day. And I wear this stuff all the time because I'm proud of my kids. People want to talk to me about it, I'll let it, here we go. So number one, you want to create a culture of something that you want to be part of. I want kids to be hoping to be on the basketball team, striving to be on the basketball team. So that's number one, is we got to have program pride. How do you build that? For me, I think it's just a culture of competitiveness. I talk to kids all the time. There's a massive difference between working hard and being competitive. We can both get in the gym and work hard and get a sweat in, but we may not be competing. We have to find ways to push beyond boundaries, whether that be the intellectual boundaries of basketball where, hey, simple free throw. Are we falling asleep or are we really crushing the guy next to us on a block out? I really believe in pressure defense. It doesn't work all the time, so I want to instill defense where we're on the attack all the time. I'm a believer that if you are in a fight, if you swing first, you're probably going to win. So for most teams, based on who you're playing, certain programs have, elite guards and things like that make it hard, but we want to come out and press at certain levels, different types of press, different ways we approach those presses. So try to install defensive-minded philosophy. And then for me, for offense, like building a program, so you have the concept of, I think a lot of kids fear shooting the ball. And I don't believe in that. If you are, if you really can't shoot, and I know you can, then we're going to talk about that. But the guys that can shoot the ball, sometimes they miss a shot and they get disappointed or think coach is going to yell at them. We believe in, like, if you're open and we've moved the ball and looked to get a good shot, or maybe it's in transition, we want to be offensively aggressive as well. I had a kid last year that shot 46.1% from three-point land, and he didn't shoot it enough. Obviously, when you're shooting like that, you want that kid shooting every time he touches it and he's open. I've just sort of stolen the idea of Bill Belichick stuff, so we want to have aggression on defense, aggression on offense, up-tempo when we can. Get a good look, let's take it and crash boards. And then the last thing is I so believe in, like, when you can get your kids to believe in the special teams, that's the out of bounds, the end of quarter situations. Can we win all 4 quarters? Hopefully you don't need the 4th. Can we win all 3? And then we've gained 6 points right there. Can we win the free throw battle? Can we win the sideline out of bounds, the baseline out of bounds? Can we win all those details? And so as you look at those three things, that's a long season, a lot of practicing,
Right.
specialty plays, end of game. Be clear with them, like really, really clear if you're starting a program. You have to identify what you believe in.
So you're really teaching both energy and effort, heart, but also thinking the game, really understanding the game. You don't have to be the best player or best team, but if you're the hardest working team and you think the game and you're more strategic, you probably end up going to win the games that maybe you shouldn't even have won.
Yeah, and those are the ones the ones you were supposed to win, you're supposed to win, and when you don't, you got to go and reflect. But when you get kids to start thinking the right way, and I had a good example of this last year. We were running a set, and I asked a kid, "What did you see?" So he's making a read on it was a zone 2-3 zone set we run called Zone Mo. And he cut A and I saw B. So we reloaded, like, what did you see? He didn't see what I saw. Because if he did what I saw, he had a layup. And he's a big kid and he just never saw it. So it wasn't his fault. So the feel for the game, it's really our job to be like, just stop practice. This is the cut that's supposed to happen. This is the option B. Why did you do that? And if they can explain that to you, that's important. But all the things you're talking about, how do you see the game or how do you help a teammate? All of those things and stealing games. And we actually, to be honest with you, the Maynard program's a great program, and we opened up with them. We stole one from them. I know we did. But our kids found a way late to find, like, if you watch through that game, it was like every single thing went right for us, everything. And the kids just kept believing, and it was all the little things. And then all of a sudden we wind up in overtime, and we steal a win, and that gets us, like, this T-shirt. It's like Lunenburg's on the map.
Right.
There we are right there. And I think the Maynard game was huge for us, and then that helps us with a couple of big wins we had later in the season. So, building that mentality, building details is super important.
Somebody comes into your practice, parent, administrator. What's the feel of your practice?
One of my favorite quotes is, "Nothing great is accomplished without enthusiasm." So I can't lead that all the time, but my nature is I get excited, like think about day one. I can't wait for that. And think about the middle of the season practice on a Sunday morning. I get excited about that. So it's a little bit loud. I think my kids need to be louder in practice in terms of voice, in terms of, just basic chirp. Like when you get a good play, it's okay, hey, let's go. So that's coming for us. We actually try to create some conflict in practice in terms of, I step back a little bit and kids have to have, you're on the black team, I'm on the gray team. We don't agree with this call. There's some conflict, we resolve. So there's, I like it to be noisy. So it's a beehive, hopefully.
You are an enthusiastic coach. No question about it.
It's just who I am, I think. You got to be you, right?
And that sort of rubs off on your players. Your players are almost an extension of your mindset. Are you trying to mold them into what you are, or are you trying to let them be themselves and probably take a little bits and pieces of you?
That's an awesome question. I think there's this concept of leadership, right? And leadership is it's a good leader that inspires others to have confidence in that leader, him or her.
Right.
The great leaders inspire the others to have confidence in themselves. I don't need any confidence. I don't shoot the ball anymore. My guys need to have confidence. So, my enthusiasm is what it is. I have some dudes that are pretty chill. That's who they are. Like the point guard that shot 46%, he didn't say too much. But when he does, like, whoa, Johnny's on, let's go. And like if he did say something verbally or he showed some emotion, it was real, it was Johnny. I think sometimes the kids take a little bit of that from me, but I think if I could gift them anything, be you, but be vested all in. Like I don't want any kid on my team that's kind of half in. Or you're either all in or you can just go home.
So as you see the development of your team and your players over the course of a season, I'm sure that you view it in different segments and parts, where at the beginning of the season, maybe you're less game planning, but more implementing your sets, your philosophy. As you go along, maybe you're now game planning a little bit tighter, and then you get to the end of the season, you're very specific. What's the process during the season for you as a coach, and what are you looking for from your players in return as you see their development?
Yeah, so early on, it's, I try to take it in mind that you always have new kids. Kid that came up from a JV team, kid who moved to town. So sometimes you want to hit the ground running 100 miles an hour, and you got to bring everybody along. It's a team, don't leave nobody behind. So you got to install and remind about, hey, listen, when we're doing 2-2-1, this is exactly how it works in the two modes that we run it in. So you do have to teach and be slow, which is not a strength of mine, but it's like, so I write down and make sure at the end of each practice, I write down what went well, what didn't go well, what's kind of installed. So I have 3 stages at the bottom. This is in, this is developing, and this is not yet in. So I have it at the bottom. So I look at that and say, where are we? It's a gauge, right? And then obviously you got your scrimmages coming up and you're trying to install stuff before your first scrimmage, your basics, right? So I put those at the bottom and then revisit and just try to look through your practice plan and come back to those things. As far as the kids go, one of my favorite things is when they're asking you questions. So coach, when this happens and the ball gets flipped on a rotation, which guy do you want, blitz in that double team? And that's the great question, because if you think about it, basketball is a massive series of if-then statements. And if the ball goes here in this scenario and there's a guy behind me versus there's not a guy behind me, what happens? There are times when kids will come to me and say, Coach, what do you think about putting this in against man? I had a situation last year where we were scouting somebody and there was a great play and I watched it 3 or 4 times. I'm like, how are we going to defend that? I'm like, well, let me stop thinking about that. Why don't we install it? Everything's stolen in basketball. So we stole this play, and one of my players was like, Coach, isn't that so-and-so's play? I'm like, yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? And so he knew that this was the play for this other team, and we've been prepping against how to defend that particular. So I think, as you go and you build, yes, you got to do your basics first, and then the middle of the season, you got to start getting into real specific stuff with your end of game situations. And then as the end of the season happens, we do a ton of situational stuff, not that we don't at the beginning, but using the clock and doing situationals. You're up to, with the ball, 147 left, shot clock moving. What are you doing? I call them situationals. And those are important because like those end of season games that you need, and you're down by 2 with 37 seconds left, and you've done that in practice, then the kids respond well. They should.
So once you've made the tournament,
yeah,
what's the preparation process?
Preparation, number one, is we're talking about it right now. Like we don't want to be 16 or higher this year, whether we get there or not, but we need to talk about it. So when you're preparing this fall and you're in the weight room, that's why we need to get there. So that's number one. Preparation is where do you want to be, and all games matter throughout the course of the season. So there's that end goal, but it's all connected to the middle. We break it into 4 or 5 season games. We have it on the wall. We have images on the wall. And so we try to set a goal, whether it be 5-0, 4-1. And if we hit all 4-1s, we go 16-4. I'll sign that right now. So we do that in preparation in some ways to not look ahead. It's sometimes the big is too big. The totality of the season is too big. So we try to chunk it down, focus on that. Whether the first 5 went great or terrible, we just take it and throw it away because it doesn't matter, it's behind us. Just look at the next segment, small segment. So I try to have the kids go through, and we're blessed because we get into the Clark tournament. So we talk a lot about the Clark tournament, and they'll ask, I do tell the kids that let's be honest with them, like this is where we stand in the state right now. Those rankings are great. I don't mind them. So the Clark's an awesome opportunity. It's got a lot of history, a lot of great players that have played there, a lot of great coaches, the opportunity to play at Clark University for our high school kids, and you've seen it there. It's just magical, right? So
it's a gregreat preparation for that next step. Right?
And so when we get to pre-Clark and pre-state, it's specific, and we talk about, you're not simple things. Like we should know our plays, we should know our defense, but you watch a practice, we're not cutting hard enough. What do you mean, coach? That cut's not going to get you open against David Prouder. They almost won the state championship. It's not good enough. Really? Yeah, because you're playing the Clark. When you look at that, it's systematic things. What do we believe we can do against them? But at the same time, it's we're not changing who we are because we played, Excel or we played South Hadley. We're who we are, and I need the kids to know that. We're going to do our thing. We're going to we're going to cut a little better, screen a little harder, but we're not changing who we are. We got here because of what we are and who we are.
After the South Hadley game,
yeah,
tough loss.
Yeah,
you've put your program on the map.
Yeah.
What do you say to the team after a tough loss like that?
It's hard. This is so emotional because you vest everything in it, right? Everything. And the kids did. And you got there because your kids believed, and it's hard. It's not that you lost. It's that the journey's over. My guy Miles, my guy Waleed, and Vinny, and Evan, and those guys, if this is good enough for you, then you don't have to work that hard. But if it isn't good enough, we got to do more.
So in your build season, what does that look like? You have multi-sport athletes.
Yeah.
Just like most high schools, which is great. From a basketball perspective, AAU seems to be a fairly significant event for most.
We have a lot of kids playing this fall. The guys that as the basketball coach hat only, thrilled. They're getting after it.
You're really building a culture of leadership, of accountability, of passion and commitment.
I've had good role models in my life. My high school coach is as quality human being as there could be. Coach O'Neill is unbelievable. Is still in my life right now. Coach DeBerry was my college coach, and I would go through the wall for both dudes in a second. And I think in part because they so cared about basketball, but they taught us bigger life lessons than hoops. You know, it was like, be kind. Whenever you leave the sub shop, you pick up everything, whether it was yours or not, those things. And basketball is such a great avenue to teach kids what's right. Like, can I give you an example?
Sure.
We totally screwed up after beating Maynard, like meaning we weren't supposed to win that game. They were defending state champs, first league game on the road. They were supposed to beat us. And we came out and got it done. And so we went into the locker room, and there was this euphoria of the JV kids were in there, the varsity kids were in there. I had made these shirts. Our slogan was about, you know, being on the map. And I told them, like, we had beaten somebody early in the year. I'm like, oh, we're on the map because we beat so-and-so. So I walk in the locker room. They're all jacked up. I don't know what I'm going to say to them. You know how it goes. You figure it out. I said, hey, guys. I said, I lied to you last week when we beat so-and-so. I said, that didn't put you on the map. I was like, but Maynard did. And the kids had just gotten the shirts, and this euphoria, right? It's like when you win the national championship or you win the world championship, people flip over cars. Right. Well, my kids went crazy. I didn't know it, but they were just going crazy, high-fiving, and the whole program's there. It's really what I wanted. Then, I didn't see it, but the kids tore down all the stuff, the posters that were on the locker room wall, and I didn't see it. So I get an email the next day saying, hey, did your kids possibly rip this stuff down? And I reach out directly to my captain. This is, I think, Saturday. I'm like, that day, what happened? I said, did this happen? He goes, yes, coach, it did. Right away, didn't avoid it. He told me the very first, he didn't say, what are you talking about? He was honest. I said, here's the deal, we're going to fix it. I said, I'm going to send an email back, and we're going to go to the girls' team on their practice time, whatever we do not have practice. We're going to bring donuts or fruit, and we're all going to apologize. So I sent that email that's what we're doing. I sent that to the coach, and she said, I can't believe you emailed back, didn't ignore it. I can't believe you had a plan in place. And all those, she said, she goes, we don't want anything. I told her, I said, it wasn't malice. It wasn't full of malice. It was just we were euphoric and just lost our minds. I can't believe I didn't see it, but I didn't. The life lesson was, you are going to make mistakes. It was a genuine, honest mistake, but you fix it in any way that you possibly can. And you don't lie, you own up, and you be a man about it, and then you do what you can to make it right. As you go through basketball, these kids might be connected with you forever, and you want to treat them right and teach them values, and I think sports is awesome for that. My dad really taught me that when I was a kid.
Your son, Vinny, plays on the team.
Yeah.
So that's a different dynamic.
It is, yeah.
And for those that haven't been part of that situation, it's obviously a challenge with some of the other players in terms of maybe possibly favoritism. That relationship may be different. Vinny's a good player. How do you balance that? And how do you coach your son? Do you coach him differently? The same? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think coaches out there are going to find that. I think he earned his stripes in practice. I think he earned his stripes, and he deserved it from his tryout. And I think the kids, from what I can tell, haven't really given him a ton of crap because I think he's been helpful to the program.
Sure.
And they also know that he really works at it. It's not like shows up the Monday after Thanksgiving and like he's all in. So I think the kids get that.
So he's really setting the example.
It's on him.
And you're really treating him like everybody else.
Yeah, and there are times when it's hard, like for the coaches out there, you know, or the players. As his coach, I do have to identify, like, right now I'm your coach, and we're going to talk like I'm your coach, and this is how that goes. And then sometimes after games, like, hey, Dad's here, and we can talk, you know, hey, I was proud of you, man. Even though the coach may have been ripping him for defense, I was proud of whatever. So,
but that's also a special time in your life.
It's awesome. It's really cool, like, because we talk hoops all the time. We just went down to see Greg Zaris, and we talk hoops with X-Man, and he's a lot of fun to hang out and talk basketball, but it's hard, and I mean this in some ways. If anything's different about the coaching, he doesn't get it any better, I can assure you that. If anything, he's going to get it worse or harder because, you know, it's one of those things where he'll handle it well and he can handle adversity. I think that's part of basketball and life. If you're getting coached hard, it's because your coach believes in you, and there's more that you're supposed to give to the program or to yourself. I see it in you, but maybe you don't believe it. And there's a kid in my program right now. His mom told me, he said, there's going to be no kid in the history of Lunenburg High School that had his name yelled more than Miles. But probably not. But I love Miles, and I believe so much in Miles that he is going to be fantastic. And last year, Miles was league all-star.
You have a long history in basketball. When you're in high school, St. Bernard's, of which you're in the Hall of Fame.
I am, sir, for that.
You and I grew up in the same era. You were one of the best basketball players in the state of Massachusetts at that time. I can remember many folks wanting to go see you, full of packed gyms. That small St. Bernard's gym, the games that we went to were electric. You were the main attraction. So then you go on to play at Babson for Coach DeBerry. You've learned from other coaches some of their styles. Maybe your high school coach, maybe Coach DeBerry. Yeah. The incorporation of that, what's that like, and how do you draw that into your current experience and coaching style?
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable to hear you talk like that. I was fortunate. I shot the ball a fair bit in high school, and I had great teammates in high school as well that typically wanted to give it back to me. So if I passed it, I would shoot it the second time. That was a good time in my life. And to be honest with you, I was always chasing my brother. His team in '87, 16-4, beat some stud dudes from Wachusett, and they were winning more games than I was, and I would trade my scoring for their winning. We were good, just not as good as my brother's team, and I always wanted that. I craved it. And then college was the perfect bringing together of a guy who could really coach and coach DeBerry. The guys I was surrounded with are just like you and I. They are relentlessly motivated to play basketball, relentlessly competitive, cared about very little else besides basketball and winning. And so when you bring all that together, sometimes you have these alphas that will butt heads because I want to score more points than you and this and that. And we had none of that. It was miraculous that happened. So I took away from my high school experience and my high school coaching and Coach DeBerry a few things. Number one is the coach is important. The culture they create is important. Both of them, it was just great family cultures. We're part of something bigger than self, and we have to commit to that bigger than self thing. From the player side, I just love pressure. I never mind playing at Fitchburg High in the Brickyard. I never minded any of that stuff. And I almost loved it when Fitchburg High fans were chirping at you from 2 feet away. I'm like, this is awesome. You just made it worse. Again, we didn't get them my senior year, but we were trying. So that hot box of basketball, I want my kids to embrace that. So as an athlete, I always liked that. Why would you fear that? This is what you asked for. Did you want to go play in a vacant gym in some other random town, or do you want to be at Maynard when it was awesome, or at Clinton when it's crazy? And that's what you signed up for. And if you stink, you don't get that gym. Nobody shows up. Never be afraid of that big game. Just go get it. And I also think I took away from Babson the friendships and relationships that have so lasted because we were all the same. We put it in. I can't think of a guy that didn't cash his chips all in, and that made it through. And those guys are still my closest people. And I hope that some of the relationships that the kids have on my team now, that they have that, like 30 years, like this is my 30th anniversary. And I hope that from college, and I hope that they have that where they're just still connected as friends.
So after that Maynard victory,
yeah,
did you happen to, in the recesses of your mind, hearken back to Harvard?
That game was magical because we believed we could win, and then we got off the bus and we still believed it, and then after the second half, we knew it was over. So Harvard was a little different. We thumped them, and it felt awesome, and then Scotty kicked the chair over, and we really knew it was over when he used some choice of words in the middle of the second half, like, yep, Scotty's right, these guys aren't as good as we are. Whereas Maynard was like, we were getting beat, and we clawed back. We were getting beat, and we clawed back. And I loved that because, like, the Babson teams we had, and I'm not trying to overstate things, we had a really, really good teams.
No doubt.
We were good, and we were mostly playing from in front. The team I had last year, we had to scratch and claw for every win, and we knew that. And I sort of like that better than when we showed up against MIT senior day, my senior year, it was over. Like, they got off the bus and the game was over. We knew that. We didn't really have a lot of those as Lunenburg last year. So the Maynard thing, I didn't think about that with Harvard, but it just felt good to have scratched it out because then your kids are gutty. And then we ended up having a game in the Clark tournament against Sutton, who had 5 seniors, really well coached. And Zwicky's the coach there, who also played for Surge at Assumption. and really well coached. Like, man, they were tough. And we were down 22-1 in the Clark tournament. I'm like, this isn't great. Serge actually went to the game, sitting in the back. I'm like, this is not great. And then both point guards were down. My Deo kid, my backup point guard, Vinny, who's not a true point guard, picked it up, and we all of a sudden win in double overtime. It was like magical. Grit, fight, scratch, claw.
So as you talk to your players, or you just in general, having played in high school, having played in college, and made that leap, today's environment is very difficult. We see today not a big disparity between 1, 2, and 3. Division III, they've got 15, 16 guys on benches. 7 of them are playing, and they're all good.
All of them. Yeah.
What do you say to players today in terms of what it takes to make that next leap, that next jump, to be a part of something special like that?
Yeah, and I think that the way the game has changed is, like I went down to see Babson play last year. They got 2 6'10" freshmen. They're going to be sophomores this year. They can do everything. They can shoot it. They can go inside. They're 6'10". Like that's a nice gift, right? So when you're a guy like our size, low sixes, you got to be pretty good at something, and it's probably dribble, pass, and probably shoot, right, and feel for the game. And obviously every coach loves defense. Number one, I think they got to go see games, because you always have kids like, oh, I'm going to play in college. I'm like, okay, let's go see Fitchburg State. Take a look at that, because that's the closest college to us. And I take kids down to Babson each year, and it's like we sit in the front row, look at that. And sometimes they're not really overly realistic. You're like, oh, I could be out there, coach. I'm like, dude, the guy that you think is your size, he's 6'5".
Right.
You're 5'11". That's different. If the kid's really not just saying it, he's passionate about it, then you got to connect the dots. This is where I am. This is what I've seen, what I'd like to do. How are you going to get there? And this is what it looks like more so. So does the weight room need to happen? Absolutely, it has to happen. Those kids are huge, and they're fit, and they're so athletic. Everybody's above the rim nowadays. And so to show them that, and to be honest with them, like, listen, like you're going to have to, this is maybe the skill that would equate to the next level. You have to play defense. There's 0 coaches. If you're the best shooter in the state, they're not playing if you can't guard. They can't put you in.
What's the preview for Lunenburg High School next year?
I'm excited, genuinely, not just because we're talking about this in front of people. I know my kids have put in the work. We lost in the finals of our summer league, and we had never, the past couple of years, we hadn't won a playoff game. Are we trending in the right direction? Sure. Is our league really good? Sure. There's a few teams that I think are really loaded this particular year, so we're fighting against them, which I don't mind. We expect, and our goal is to be in the Clark tournament. We were 5 seed last year. Let's not do that. Let's try to be better. We are certainly trying to aim for state. Our league is tough, but we want to battle everybody that's in our league, and I think our kids have a healthy respect for their opponents and the individuals that we play against. We know a lot of the kids, but we're hoping for a better year than last year, whatever that really means. And I think, in part, it's like we didn't make the Clark final. That would be awesome to get there. I really want to win it, but it's like let's be real about what maybe we can. I don't know. I think there's a lot of really good teams in Central Mass coming back, and then in the state, why not?
So you come across as a really proud coach. You have your Lunenburg shirt. You've put your team on the map.
Yep, we're trying.
So I got one more shirt that I just want you to give sort of a perspective on, in terms of, just give me a few words when you see.
I saw you carrying something in.
When you see this.
I have that shirt.
When you see that shirt, what do you think of that?
I have that. I wear it. I actually have my game shorts from senior year, the green ones. You remember those? I was at a campfire with Scott Leap, and I put on my old jersey around the campfire. We're telling old war stories. I'm incredibly prideful of that Babson team, the school, what they're doing right now. And those were the best days for me. Like, I met so many great people, the wins that we had in terms of some of the monster wins with WPI, and the memories we made as friends. There's nothing, besides my family, that's the biggest thing for me.
If anybody wants to learn more about Coach Dellasanta, you can go to Babson. He's on the 1,000-point scorers wall. You can go to St. Bernard's. He's in the Hall of Fame. But more importantly, you can go to Lunenburg High School and watch some absolutely phenomenal basketball by one of the great coaches in Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you having me. I was so nervous, but it was more fun than I expected.
We had a great time.
I hope we did okay.
All right, we did.